Thank you so much. Hey, do you ever pinch yourself? You sound so calm as you're talking about being in space.
I'm pretending.
Do you ever sort of sit and think, my God, I did this thing. I actually got to see the world from another place.
Before I went the first time, some of the other astronauts, you ask everybody, what it was like up there, and a lot of them said the same thing, which was, it's so fantastical and amazing to have gone, and you'll be so busy sharing when you come back, you have to take a few snapshots in your brain that are just yours so that you can go and visit them. And I find actually whenever I discover a new place on the ground, like just coming to Vancouver yesterday, I've seen Vancouver so many times from space, and it's really beautiful from space. And so when I come someplace new that I haven't seen, but I've seen it from far away, it brings me back exactly to that space station.
I loved how much you talked about thinking through things, understanding perspective. What made you learn to be comfortable changing perspectives and opening your mind up to new possibilities?
Actually, I will say that it's always challenging to do that, in that we lose things all the time up on that space station, because we're so used to when you drop something, you're going to look down here, but actually, it's going to be somewhere else. And we actually literally say, okay, we're looking for this thing, let's all turn our heads this way, let's pretend that this is the floor, and everything looks kind of weird and different, but sometimes we'll find things that way. And I think that some, little exercises that you can do with people can really just help you do that. Ask them different questions than you usually ask.
Here's a couple of questions. The keyhole is alive and well, so please go ahead and send along your votes for some of the questions that are already up, or by all means, offer your own. How do you reconcile the environmental impact of space travel with our current issues? What about space debris?
So that's a couple questions really packed into one, and I will say that people are looking with the commercial partners that are now participating in space. It's really a totally different game, and because there's more people, they have different kinds of money than government money. People are very much looking at renewable fuels, and so that's one thing. And in terms of what we're doing up in space and trying to make sure that it's safe for everyone, people are really working hard on that as well. And it's about taking that extra look. It's not that you can change it instantly, but you can take that extra look about how you're doing things and do them more intentionally. And I will tell you that we're doing that partly because we have more company, and we are collaborating across lines we've never collaborated across.
Right. Here's another one that is along that line. Is there an international agreement to prevent disposal of waste into space? And is that an arena where global environmental governance can be pioneered?
I don't actually know the exact answer to that. I will tell you that what I see happening in space mostly happens at a person-to-person level. It's an international space station, and first of all, there's hundreds of people every day making decisions together, so they are really, really learning how to work on teams and doing it quite well. And then there's the 6 of us that are up on that space station from different countries, and often it is the crew, and that is the individual people. It is, the crew themselves, between them, making things work. It is, the medical doctor for the crew, the Canadian crew working with the US doctor. People to people is the way things get done. And also to say really quickly that even when I think the space station is a shining icon of international cooperation, in that even when we have, distinct times that we are going through where we are not actually working with other countries, the space station is an exception. And all those things happen because it's such a beacon of hope and cooperation. The space station goes on. We're working with our Russian partners, with the Canadians, the Japanese, the Europeans. Even if we disagree about a lot of other things, we all understand that this vantage point belongs to all of us.
Right. You spoke about coming up against diverse cultural views with Russian companions in the space station. What role do you believe, as somebody's asking, what role do you believe cultural differences play in sustainability challenges? And then how do we overcome those? So beyond the smiles or the stone faces, how do you connect?
Well, I think the answer is a little bit about what I said, that sometimes there's connections that happen, like you and I, that was a connection that happened right away, even over the phone, and yet, with other people, I'll just think, oh, we're so different. I don't know about that. And I think it's about stepping out, and even if it's, you hesitate either because you're actually pretty sure you won't like them, you might be sure that they're useless, you might be sure that they're this way or that way, you have to put that away, and you have to just, go and see who they are. And I hope what I've communicated is that our mission here on this planet is essential. And that kind of bravery is not a luxury. It's essential to the way we go forward. And I think we have to be very respectful of international and cultural differences because they're real. And I think the way to get around them is to actually just say they are real, they're on the table, and let's talk about them.
Right. Somebody wants to know about composting in space. So this is the Let's Talk Trash people. How do you do it?
Well, we're not quite doing it yet. We do recycle about 90-something% of the urine, and we do not recycle, as I said, the solid waste yet. But those experiments are coming because many of you, I'm sure, saw The Martian. That's very real. Why would you not use that resource to grow your food and other things? And I see biology as playing such an exciting role, and I think that's a particular challenge for folks, where I'm a chemist, and yet biology, I'll say synthetic biology, it can really mean such a range of things, but understanding that nature is so clever, and then learning how to use what nature already figures out, that is a path forward. And if you have to ask to have people explain it to you 5 times like I do, then that's okay. Yeah. But you have to, I think that's really one of the paths of the future.
Right. Let me introduce another one of the Toronto questions. The Ontario Circular Economy Innovation Lab brings together stakeholders to develop CE ideas. What other work is being done now to bridge sectors and achieve a circular economy?
Well, I would say conferences like this, and this is where, you're going to see more of this work really from the experts, but I will still say that I think the connections come from meeting people. You'll meet Claire today, who's really one of the world's authorities on food wasting, and I learned some things, and it made me think about people that Claire should meet. And I think that is the way it happens, is person to person, that every one of us makes a difference.
Right. How much time do you spend being brave, and how much time do you spend being open?
Ooh. I would actually divide it into 3 categories.
Okay,
so there's being open. I'd say almost always open, except when I'm tired and crabby. And probably when I'm with people I'm closer to, because you have a tendency to not be on your best behavior with them. And then there's brave, and there's pretending to be brave. And I think, and I candidly do a lot of pretending to be brave, either because it's the way that I work. In that spacesuit, that's really the hardest work, especially for one of the smallest people. And I pretend I'm having a really good time. It's acting. And yet, when people watch me and they're judging whether I should be a person with a spacesuit on the International Space Station, which I was, and I'm very, very proud of, when they're watching, they're like, she's doing okay.
Is your husband still jealous?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. If he could fit in my spacesuit, there's no question he would have shaved that mustache.
Let me have one last question, and then we are going to move along in the conference. So this one got 32 votes. It must be important. Other than pee, can you give us an example of an innovative reuse of something in space that would be considered garbage here on Earth?
So many things, I will say. First of all, everything we eat, we take that packaging, we curl it up into the smallest little, it's considered an art and a duty to make it as small as possible, take a little piece of tape, because we really don't, we have to conserve the volume of garbage. Paper towels, up on that space station, I wouldn't dream of using an entire paper towel or wet wipe. It wouldn't even occur to me. Ziploc bags, an interesting story, really, is very quick, is that someone decided, we had a lot of things in Ziploc bags. It's very convenient. You close the zipper, and then things don't float out of it, so that's convenient. But at one point, the fire safety of that and the oxygen, we decided that we didn't want to have as many of those, and they needed to be made of Teflon. And so in the interim, they sent up Teflon bags that didn't have zippers. Not useful. In fact, I labeled them UZBs, useless Ziploc bags, because they couldn't be closed. And so the system wasn't helping us, right? And so we really had to talk to the system and say, you cannot send those. They are garbage. They are stuff that we will pack them away and save them, but we cannot use them. So lots of things like that.
Right. We have a last question from Toronto, and I believe it's a live one this time. Toronto.
Yes. So, from living on the International Space Station, what should residents here on Earth be mindful of when considering resource consumption and management in planning for managing our waste?
I think that the view of seeing the whole planet is one where you realize that nothing is going away. I mean, I see the universe as our neighborhood, and we are one of the planets, one of the spaceships. I mean, you can't send it away, you can't bury, I mean, nothing goes away. And so we really have to think carefully about how we begin that process. I mean, that is the challenge, but it is so much the opportunity. And there's just so many exciting norms. I mean, I think we used to have ways that we talk about when do we throw away food, and now that we realize times are different, we're thinking about that differently. There's lots of things to think about differently, and many of you have ideas that are essential to share.
Cady, thank you so much for coming to Vancouver for the first trip in and getting our conference started this year. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.